Presentation first, and after this, he's going to. However, just before I call him, I'm going to call Mr. Thompson Fontaine, who has an announcement to make. 1 minute. Thank you.
Okay, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Prime Minister. This announcement is very important. It's very important because on December 8th, the Dominicans are going to be meeting right here in Brooklyn, New York, at the Marriott in Brooklyn, for us to discuss Dominicas and the role that the diaspora can play in Dominica's development. And the reason why we're here tonight is to ask all of you to be a part of this. Tonight we have individuals, Afinia Henry from the New Jersey area. We have individuals from Maryland. What we've done is we've come together with Dominicans from all over Dominica, the US, Canada, Europe. We are joining our efforts. We think it's high time that we make a concerted effort to bring to bear this tremendous resource which we have in our people. Dominicans are very good people. We have people all over the world, and we're going to bring our efforts together to focus for one full day on the problems that are in Dominica and the ways in which we can address those problems. So we would like to make this appeal to all of you to be a part of this, to come out. It has been sponsored by the Rosie Douglas Foundation, by CODIA, by DADA, by the Dominican Academy of Arts and Sciences, and several other organizations. But the thing to remember is this: if we do not move together as a united people, we cannot achieve much. But if we put our efforts together, if we join forces together, we can achieve a lot. And registration is open. We would like you to register early. We've sent out invitations to President Bill Clinton, to the mayor of New York City. Dominica is a proud nation. We have proud people all over the world. And we're going to be together on December 8th. And we're asking you to make a very special effort to come and to be a part of it. More information is available on rosiedouglas.com if you go on the web. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine. At this time, I would like to invite the Prime Minister to address us. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Dominicans, ladies and gentlemen, what I will seek to do is to appraise you of the current situation in Dominica and to outline some of the plans for the future development of Dominica. I will try to be as brief as possible, since I would imagine you'll have a number of questions that you'd want to raise, maybe points for clarification. First of all, I want to thank God for being here today. We tried leaving yesterday. The weather was not friendly, and this was among the times when the Eagle couldn't land in Dominica. We were already at the airport. We had to wait for a good part of the day. It was something to 6 when the announcement came that the flight was cancelled. And only later to find out that we had to be back at the airport 6 o'clock in the morning. So you can imagine what time I had to leave Granby to be at Melville Hall for 6 o'clock. And from the airport in JFK, we came straight to the function here. So we have not even been to any hotel. So we've been trying to at least meet you, because I know last September it was arranged, but again, we had no control over what happened, and it wasn't possible to be here. If we try to trace the genesis of even our current situation, or what could be described as the reason why we end up in the situation we're in today, it is a situation whereby Dominica has always relied on agriculture. It's an agrarian society. We have depended on agriculture heavily, but our economic system has been one based on a monocrop system. So you go way back from sugar, gone into vanilla, you've gone into limes, and for the past 50 years or so we've been into bananas. But there have been very little forward planning, because for many years the farmers received a price that was higher than the market price. And plans were not made for when they had to face the stark reality try to face the market forces, whereby they would be receiving the price set by the market. And it came as a shock when the farmers realized, quite apart from the whole global move to liberalize trade, they realized that they were faced with a situation where their cost of production was way above what they received. And very little was done to face the situation with productivity. Because here is a situation where you had Latin American farmers producing as many as 25 tons per acre, and the average for Dominica had been 4. So clearly, at that level, you could not survive if you're not subsidized. And the whole dependency syndrome is something that it was very difficult to deal with. People are accustomed of subsidy. We know in the developed countries that is a norm. But for the small countries like ours, where we have to rely on our own level of productivity so that we could generate our foreign exchange, it became very hard for the farmers when they realized that the subsidies were going to be no more. And it wasn't a decision of government. Here you had the donor community that stated clearly that if the price was going to be subsidized, they would cut off the assistance they've been given. And therefore, we had to make that kind of adjustment. Because of that, earnings declined tremendously. A number of farmers had to leave the industry because they had no choice. Farmers who were accustomed of producing less than a ton per acre, simply because the price was subsidized, they were in the business. But when the subsidy was cut off, they just could not be in the competition at all. And therefore, it became very difficult because of that kind of dislocation now that was taking place in the society. And it was taking place at a time when there were downward trends in the world economy. It is a time when the economists were arguing as to how should we describe the period. Should we describe it as just a slowdown, a downturn, or should we just come out bluntly and say it is a recession? And then just about that time, here you had the barbaric attacks on New York and Washington. And then it was like putting the icing on the cake. It made it extremely difficult because it was at a time when we saw our prospects in the tourism industry, in telecommunication sector, in the offshore financial services. And then as the slowdown was taking shape, as recession was taking shape, those attacks came and made it extremely difficult for our own tourism sector. And therefore, government has very tough decisions to take now. We found ourselves in a situation where our debt ratio has been so high that it is extremely difficult to even service the debts. Because after servicing the debts, you have very little left for capital investment. You have a situation where the public service bill for wages and salaries, it is the highest in the OECS. And this is something that government has to grapple with because it is a country with one of the smallest populations in the OECS, but one of the biggest public service. So these are real problems that we've been grappling with. Different people will express their views. They may try to fabricate reasons or bring forth reasons without being able to substantiate the points that they are making. But these are the realities that we have to deal with. And therefore, government has decided to pay attention to the productive forces. Because many of the errors that were done in past administrations, and even started with this administration when we just got in, is that while you were spending, we were spending on the wrong places. Sometimes one would say, oh, government is spending too much. But if you're spending in the right places, then later on you would realize the benefits of that investment. But if you're spending in the wrong places, then you can never realize the benefits of that kind of investment. And this is a problem that beset past administrations, and I will confess, I will admit that at the beginning, this administration fell in that same pit, in that same trap. And we have decided to pay more attention now to the promotion of Dominica. Pastor Roy made the point about Dominica being referred to as the Dominican Republic. Pastor, you have company, because this is what I've been faced with even before I've been in government. Travel the world over and you declare that you're from Dominica, and you hear some people say, oh yes, I've been here because I walked along the border of Haiti. Then you realize you're referring to Dominican Republic and not your Dominica. So you have to really take some pains to explain the location. Some of them must have heard of Guadeloupe or Martinique. So you have to use that as a reference. Or even Barbados, way down Barbados, you have to use as a reference point for the location of Dominica. So we have to do quite a bit. Of course, there was a certain time I did make mention to the president of Santo Domingo that somehow he will have to prepare subvention for Dominica, because we are assisting in the promotion of the Dominican Republic quite a bit. Because whatever we do for ourselves, they benefit. Because the word Dominica is stuck there. And you know the citizens are referred to as Dominicans. And therefore it is a struggle for us. But if we cannot sell our destination, then the hopes for us in tourism cannot be realized. And therefore we have to spend a great deal of effort in trying to promote Dominica as a destination, to package what we have. Because we have something unique, we have something special. We have a very high degree of hospitality in our country that, based on the report from many people, it is unsurpassed. So we have to package that as a people. And you're exhibiting that right here in New York, because people who mingle with Dominicans, they conclude that Dominicans are among the best people they've ever come across. Even here, let us say Dominicans at home and Dominicans in the diaspora. And therefore, this is a plus for us. And it is something that we have to continue to tell the world. Dominica is a Green Globe destination. We have to say to the world that Dominica is a destination for healing, a destination for recuperating. It's a destination if you really want to be at peace with yourself, peace with the world, peace with nature, very close to nature. And these are the things we can really bring out there so that we can realize some benefits in that particular sector. We look at the telecommunication sector. For us in Dominica, we say it is new, but for many parts of the world, it is not new. But we need to develop the infrastructure. It is costly, and as usual, when any time a new administration comes in, you have scores of companies coming in and submitting projects, and after about a year or so, those companies disappear from the surface of the earth. We ourselves were faced with that. However, there are some companies who have shown interest, but I believe that the cornerstone of our own development will rest with Dominicans, as it has been. If you look at the hotel sector, it is owned by and large by Dominicans. If you look at every aspect of development in the country, those developments have come about by and large from the efforts of Dominicans. And I do not even want to make mention of the remittances that you have been sending home. Too often, we tend to downplay. Too often, we tend to overlook the contributions that you in the diaspora have been making towards our development. I believe if there was a sudden severance of that contribution, I do not believe that any government would be able to stand on its feet. So we recognize that, and that is why we want to continue to invite you to be part of the process We have not been able to put the proper mechanism in place where you can be part in an official way of the process. But we are already sounding that call to Dominicans at home, because sometimes there is that tendency from Dominicans at home to detest Dominicans in the diaspora. So we first of all have to get that message out to them, to raise their consciousness as to the contributions that you out there have been making towards the development of the country. So now is the time where we really want to appeal with open arms to you to participate in the process of development in the country. Many foreign companies will make applications, but we believe that there are many Dominicans out there who have acquired the skills, many Dominicans out there who have the financial prowess and have the financial resources to embark on a number of projects that would assist us in our own program of development for the country. We realize that a number of Dominicans have felt left out. They feel that we do not want to embrace the skills and the contribution. But I want to say here, I want to state here, I want to make that fundamental point that this administration is open and we're willing, as we have started with civil society in Dominica, despite the criticisms that our rivals have been making, that if you open up to civil society, it's because you cannot lead anymore. And I'm saying no. I'm saying that other people have these skills, they have ideas, and therefore why not welcome those skills and welcome those ideas? Because Dominica does not belong to me. It does not belong to the present administration. Dominica belongs to all of us. We are passing through the world, we want to make our contribution. And we know that when we have left the world, we expect Dominica to be there. And we expect another set of people, another generation to come in and make their contributions. And that is why we rely on Dominicans out there in the metropolitan states, be it in Europe, be it in the United States. We rely on you heavily to participate in the process, and we are hoping in the not too distant future that we will have a formal structure whereby you can make your contribution. The current situation is one whereby some people cannot believe I could be smiling. It is worse than you can imagine now. And we have always tried to tell the people. For those of you who listened to my address to the nation on 3rd November, I attempted to put the current situation in perspective. What's happening in Dominica, what's happening in the region, and what's happening on the international scene. In the rest of the islands, it's not very better. But in our case, we inherited a situation, and even for me, who found myself in that seat unexpectedly, it had been very stressful. Young government had been in that position. It took some time to come to terms with dealing with the situation. Having to deal with a bureaucracy that is extremely difficult to manage. And I could confess to you that the things I used to see outside of government, now I'm in, and it's a total different picture. And I have already said, when I leave, I will give all due respect to anyone who is sitting in that seat. But I still feel encouraged because a number of people have been expressing goodwill. They've been expressing their support. And very importantly, They've been praying. They've been praying. I've never been a prayerful person myself. But believe me, I've found myself praying. Because the problems as they emerge, as they emanate, as they come up, I just have to turn to God and ask Him to give me wisdom and guidance to deal with them. I can't deal with them, believe me. On my own, I cannot deal with them. And therefore, we need your support. And Pastor Roy called on you to pray. Yes, prayers are powerful and wonderful. Might be a myth, but I believe that prayers have been answered. And there might be people who don't believe so. But again, you know, you have your entitlement to that belief. And therefore, I really want to invite you to raise your questions, make your comments, and feel free to participate in the process. It's a process, as I indicated, that is extremely difficult. I do not know whether you have heard of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, what it stands for, what it means when you have to go to the IMF. And we are at a juncture where it seems that we'll have no choice. It seems, I repeat, that we'll have no choice but to go to the IMF. And when you go to the IMF, the prescription that the IMF gives is a prescription for social revolt. I just want to tell you, because that is the truth, and that is the reality. I wouldn't want to leave here to make you believe that the situation is rosy. But notwithstanding that, as I said to you, I am optimistic. I have hope, because the plans that we have laid down are plans whereby there will be rewards down the road. By investing in the productive forces, in the housing, we know for sure that that will generate economic activity. Since the Cold War has ended, the traditional sources of finance have been drying up, not slowly, but quickly. And I am pleased to announce to you that even when I made the trip to Libya, many eyebrows were raised. But again, in my address, I did indicate that we need to seek assistance for our country. So I need to announce now that we just received a grant of $1 million that was promised. And we are hoping that we can invest that again in the productive sector. So I do hope you will respond to that call. It's a call for patriotism. It's a call for support at this time. If Dominica sinks, it will not only be a demerit for me, but it will be for all of us. And therefore, those who have to contribute, do not stay back. I want you to step forward, and we want to create the enabling environment to allow you to participate. As I indicated, I intended this address to be brief, but I hope that your questions will also generate more talk. Thank you very much.
You're laughing at my disability. I am height challenge, not disability. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. The Prime Minister have presented the case to to you. You have heard what is presently taking place in Dominica. He has not kept back anything. He has poured it out to you as is. At this time, we would like to take questions from you. So please do it orderly and please address him, Honorable Prime Minister. I heard many people saying tonight, Pierre, but this is an official office, so please address Honorable Prime Minister. We'll take your questions now.
Athenia Henry here. Good evening again, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, you told us that, you informed us that Dominica has one of the smallest population in the Caribbean region. We also have one of the largest public sector bills. How does your government intend to address that problem, knowing full well that you've also told us that the prescription that the IMF has presented to your government is one of social revolt? How are you going to address that without, creating that type of social revolt?
Okay, thank you very much for the permission to sit. Now, we have been okay. Thank you. Now, we have looked at the programs on the European Union Fund, and we have presented a number of projects whereby we could draw down on the special framework of assistance funds, we can draw down on the STABEX funds, and we can introduce a number of programs and projects to a number of the people who would have been dislocated from the banana industry. But that wouldn't be enough. As a matter of fact, the figure is in the region of $50 million in total as a package, where we will be introducing irrigation and we will make strenuous efforts to undertake a more aggressive diversification program. But we're also looking at this, as you said, the size of the service. I did indicate in my address that we will resist any mass dislocation of workers. But it is a situation where we will have to trim down by attrition. We have to discuss it. We have started the process, as I indicated, where we brought in all trade unions, we brought in all the private sector and the non-government organizations to come in a discourse so that we can look at the situation, let us hear from them, so that we can be in sync on that particular matter. It is not an easy one to deal with. That is why I said that we do have tough decisions ahead of us. It is something that we are engaged in at the moment as to how to deal with it.
Pat Aaron, Mr. Prime Minister. I have heard several prime ministers on occasions when they have addressed as Dominicans here in words encourage Dominicans to participate and play their part in the development of the country.